anything. I didn't know my dad. I went through all this. People ridiculed me. They laughed at me. They mocked me. And guess what? God said, you have not lost your worth. Your identity is in me.
You choose your attitude. I choose my attitude. No one chooses it for you. You are personally responsible for your attitude at all times.
Trying to figure out how I could find the solution, and what I discovered really quickly is that road was far lonelier than I ever bargained for, and far longer than I ever could have anticipated. I came to a place where I realized my strength is not enough. I am desperate for the strength of God.
Season that is in your hand right now, and it is worlds apart, and it causes frustration, disappointment, discouragement, and that's sometimes why us Christians we tap out, because the dream isn't happening fast enough. My calling isn't happening fast enough. But if you could walk away with one thing today, it's this: the Christian journey is not a journey of events. It is a step-by-step faith journey where you take one step at a time and you trust God. And you keep building.
And God brought you here to straighten you out a little bit. Maybe it hurt. To sharpen you up a little bit. And as you thought maybe some of these things were uncomfortable, where you felt like maybe you were even moving backwards. Sometimes when I worship, the things I've done in the past come to the top of my head. I'm like, why is this happening? But what's truly happening in this place is God has retracted you from the world like a good archer would. He's sharpened you, He's straightened you, and He's drawn you to His heart.
We will dance to the earth echoes of heaven, sing His praise till we see the earth.
Amen. All right. Well, we had lots and lots of fun, and I have been to many conferences. I've been to many conferences at Gateway, but I've never been to the student one. That was the first time we got to do that. We've been to a men's one, we've been to leadership ones, I've been to all of them, and I think that I got way more out of that one than I have out of any of the other ones. It was just, it was so much fun. It was incredible, the information that we got. God did big things, and so I hope the kids got as much out of it as I did. We're about to find out. So that being said, if you're a student and you went, please come up here. We had 15 kids go with us. The most we've ever had go to a summer camp event with us. Y'all stand in front, get up here on the edge like you want to be seen. Obviously not all 15 are here, but we had 15 go, and we had lots and lots of fun. For the most part, they were good. We had a couple of hard times. We had a couple of Jesus talks, but they're teenagers, and I expect that everybody, the guilty ones, have looks on their faces. But anyway, no, it was great. We had a lot of fun, and so what I'm going to do is, I know that most of y'all are going to shy away from this thing here in my hand. But I just encourage you, if I know y'all learned things because we talked every night after sessions. So I know y'all learned some things. So if you got something on your heart that you would like to share with everybody, if you wouldn't mind doing that, I think they would get a lot out of it. So maybe something you learned, something you experienced during worship. I was telling them what they would do is after worship, they would have they have a bunch of different campuses, so they would have one of their youth campus pastors come out, and they would say something to kind of close the service, the worship service, to go into the speaker, and I got more out of that than I did the actual speakers most of the time. So just every aspect of it was just awesome. They had workshops, they had classes and stuff like that. So maybe y'all want to say something that you learned in a workshop. So whatever it is that y'all want to talk about, I'll hand the mic to you, Hunter, and if you have something to say, awesome. If you are not wanting to say anything, you can pass it down and we'll see who it stops at. So I knew that was going to happen.
I learned that God is always there for you, even if you don't feel like He is. He's always there. He's always watching over you. You may not feel it, but He's there.
Awesome.
So one of the nights we talked about, it was the first speaker, I think, he talked about how like everything God does in your life, like it's basically a setup. Like you may have just showed up and you think that you got talked into coming here, you came voluntarily, but He's been setting it up since before you even were born, and He's put you in the places that He put you in for a reason.
Very good.
One of the things that we went to was they split it into men and women. It was the last day or the day before that.
It doesn't matter.
And this one was all men. We was sitting in there, and it was talking about how the leadership of the men, how there's a 17% chance of a woman, when she gets saved first in her family, for that to be passed down to her children and everything like that. But if it's a man, it's like a 93.5%. And so that's one thing that I thought was cool, I guess.
This isn't the future generation. This is the now. Amen. These kids are going to do great things now, and that's what they learned about this week. It's their time right now. The time is now. It's not, whenever they turn 30 and get married and have kids and they think they're stable and everything. No, it's now. They're the ones that we're sending out into the world. Thanks, guys. Y'all can go see. All right, what I'm going to do now is I am extremely tired, and I can't drink caffeine because of health issues. So I'm going to try not to fall asleep. So if I start mumbling or anything, y'all let me know. But I am going to bring somebody up that I admire so much, and I have gotten the chance to know very, very well over the past few years, and she is amazing. She's incredible. But one of the things that I have learned about her throughout our year of marriage now is that she is one of the most biblically sound people that I know. I mean, she knows the Bible better than I do. And so I am just so excited that I get to share my life with her, and that God has put us together. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of talk through the conference just real quick and just share some stuff that we learned, and hopefully it'll speak to some of y'all. And so with that being said, y'all give a big round of applause to my beautiful wife, ChristieRaye. Was that a good enough introduction?
Yeah, he said that because he didn't tell me I was doing this.
All right, so the first night we got there, and there was a man by the name of Mark Pettis who spoke. Mark Pettis is from Alabama. He is the youth pastor of a church called Church of the Highlands. There is a pastor who's really involved with Gateway, where we went to the conference. His name is Chris Hodges. Chris Hodges is the pastor of Church of the Highlands, which is one of the top 5 biggest churches in the nation. And this guy is the head youth pastor there. So what he talked about was, as Shiley referred to, was he talked about how God has prepared us for that moment, that we weren't just, it wasn't an accident that they were there. It was not just, somebody brought you here, I packed all you in a van and took you down there. God had prepared them to be there from the moment they were born, from the moment before they were born, before anybody even knew they were exist. God knew that they were going to be there. And it's the same thing right now. God knew that you were going to be in church today. There's something for you to get out of this today. I don't know what it is. It may have been already, you may have already gotten it through worship. You may have already gotten it through something that the kids said. I don't know what it is, but you were meant to be here. And that's why we come to church. And I try to get that across to the kids. And one of the things that kind of got to me at first, and then I realized I was like, this is just me being selfish. That whenever I take all these kids to kids camp or youth camp and all this stuff is, I want to come up here and be able to tell y'all that, 5 or 6 out of the 15 got saved and they rededicated their lives. They want to be baptized and this and that and have all these awesome statistics for you. But the thing is that's okay if that didn't happen. Or I think most of our kids are already saved, which is awesome. But the thing is they got seeds planted inside of them. And then as I prayed earlier, that's going to get watered and it's going to grow. And God's going to use those seeds eventually. I don't know when it's going to happen, and we'll kind of talk about that because the speaker talked about that a little bit on down the road. But that's what we need to realize when you come to church. That's why you come to church, is to get seeds planted inside of you. And so that's why we're here. That's why we come all the time to church, is to get those seeds from whoever it is that's speaking to us. So, and his whole thing was that you were set up. That's what he kept saying over again. He said, you were set up. You're set up by God. God set you up to be there. And so I thought that was a cool way because we usually think of being set up as kind of a negative thing. But he turned it into a positive thing and said, look, God sets you up, dude. God sets you up to be here. And so I thought that was really neat. And I'm going to ask you if you have anything to say before I keep going. I don't want to steal all your thunder.
He told this story about Billy Graham, and before he started 200 years before Billy Graham was ever born. He said 200 years ago, this guy went to a revival, and then that guy went and told the gospel to his friends, and then this guy went and told him about it, and they told their families. And so I thought that was really cool for all of our kids to hear that your story doesn't start now, it started way before this. And now it's your turn to do the same for others. And
that's exactly what he's talking about is, you've been set up. And Billy Graham was set up 200 years before he even knew it. And now he's, everybody knows Billy Graham's name. And, he's probably the best evangelist that has ever existed on the earth. And so it was really cool. And so another thing he talked about was voids. And he said, we all have a void in your heart. And the question that he asked was, how are you going to fill that void? What is it going to be that you fill that void with? And he said, he was talking, obviously to a bunch of teenagers. He said, this generation is a self-medicating generation. They want it now, and they want whatever it is, they want it now. They want all the pleasure now. But the only pleasure that you're going to get is from your Father, your one true Father, God. And so the question, and maybe that is something you need to hear today, and that needs to be a question in your life, is how are you going to fill that void? If you have a void in your life, what's it going to be? So that was really cool. So you ready to move on? All right. So the next one was, there is a very, very famous Christian rapper. He is won 2 Grammys. I mean, he's big. If you know anything about Christian rap, you've heard the name Lecrae. He's this amazing rapper, and he's done a lot of good stuff through his rap. So, you know, they're featuring him all over their website. So everybody's like, yeah, we're going to get to hear Lecrae rap. And he comes out and he goes, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is I'm not going to rap. And everybody like starts booing him. But he said, the good news is I'm going to bring the word. And he brought it. He spoke, and it was incredible. And so what he talked about was the cost. And he said, look, there's cost to being a Christian. And he said, but here's the thing: is there's joy on the other side of the cost. You just got to get to it. And so it's going to cost you some things being a Christian. And he talked about, you know, how famous he's gotten. I mean, he's hung out with Steph Curry. For those of you that are basketball fans, he's hung out with, you know, all these famous singers. And I mean, he's hung out with all these people that are famous and all these famous actors. And I mean, he's got so many friends. He put on Instagram that he was going to make a celebrity basketball tournament. Like, that's how many people he knows. But he said he was on Twitter one time. And for those of you that don't know what Twitter is, it's a social media thing. You type 150 characters, and I guess everybody knows what Twitter is because of Donald Trump, right? He's always messing up on Twitter. So not to bring politics into it, but I mean, it is true. So it is what it is. But he was talking about how people were just bashing him, and he wasn't saying anything bad. He was talking about Jesus, and people were just bashing him about it. And he started getting upset, and he was like, I guess I'm going to stop talking on Twitter. I'm going to stop doing it. And then he said, you know what? No. He said, that's what the devil wants me to do. And he said this line, and I thought it was great, especially for the kids to hear. He said, if you live for acceptance, then you're going to die from the rejection. If you live for the acceptance, you're going to die from the rejection. And so I just thought that was really cool, and that was what I got from him the most. Is there anything you would like to say about it?
Well, he talked about all of his famous friends and how he won Grammys and how awesome that was, and he still wasn't happy. And I think that's a good thing for all of our young people to hear. So they want all the likes on social media, they want all the friends, they want all the cool stuff, and that's not going to make you happy, no matter how much you have it.
All right. Look at her. I told you she's good. This man is now, and Rick would know way more about the history of this man than I would. I forget everything because Pastor Rick tells me so much information that it blows my mind and I forget it all. But he has been involved in Gateway in the very beginning. He helped kind of get it all started. And he was, I think they call it an apostolic elder. And then now Robert Morris, who is the pastor there at Gateway, his health isn't doing too well right now. So this man has stepped up and has helped become, he stepped in and is now one of the pastors as well. And his name is Jimmy Evans. Jimmy Evans is a very well-respected man through marriage talks. If you've ever seen the older gentleman talk about marriage, it's probably Jimmy Evans. But what he said was very, very good. I got a lot out of it. So it was all about your attitude. He talked about the power of attitude. And the first thing he said, and I think it's the most important thing, he said, we choose our attitudes. Nobody chooses it for you. Nobody can force you to be mad, upset, sad. You choose your attitude. You decide whether you want to be mad if somebody does something dumb. You decide if you want to be sad. You decide all that stuff. You choose your attitude. And he went through this whole story about, and I'm obviously not going to do it, that there was a man that was caught in a Nazi concentration camp. And they were just beating the tar out of him. They were, doing all this stuff to him, whatever it was that the Nazis did. Obviously not good stuff. And so, but what he said was, you can't make me hate you. You can do whatever you want to me, but you can't make me hate you. And that was the personality and the attitude that he went into that with, was, look, you can do whatever you want, but you can't make me hate you. I'm going to love you no matter what you do. And he survived and made it out of there. And then he said, Jesus didn't focus on where he was. He focused on where he was going. And that was when he was going to the cross. He didn't focus on where he was at the time. He didn't focus on all the getting beaten and all the stuff that was happening to him and the crown of thorns and getting shamed and embarrassed and spit on. He focused the whole time on where he was going because he knew what was going to happen. He knew that he was going to save so many people and that God was going to use him to do that. So Jesus didn't focus on what was happening to him in that moment. He focused on where he was going. So would you like to say something?
He also talked a lot about what bad attitudes can do for your life and kind of the trouble that brings. And one of the things he said that I really liked is God corrects and he disciplines bad attitudes, but only as long as you need it. And so if you're in a situation where you feel like you're having a bad attitude, all these things are happening, you really need to look at yourself. And if you want it to end, that's you. God will correct you only as long as you need to be corrected.
Good. All right, you ready to move on? On to the next one. All right, she's going to have a lot to say about this one. This was her favorite. We have been to, like I said, we've been to several conferences with the youth. We go every January to First Baptist in Benton to the Lift Tour that we do. So we've been to a lot of those conferences. And then last year we went to a big camp that was like a conference. I mean, they had tons of speakers and stuff. And but at all of these, there's never been a woman speak. And so this was the first time for most of them to get to hear a woman on stage speaking and bringing the word. So all right, now you can go ahead and put her up. This lady's name is Dawn Cherie Wilkerson. Dawn Cherie Wilkerson is the husband of a man named Rich Wilkerson Jr.
She's the wife.
The wife. I'm sorry. That's why I have her up here. I told you I was tired. So she's the wife. Yes, that could have been bad. The wife of Rich Wilkerson Jr. And they are pastors at a church in Miami, Florida called VOUS Church, V-O-U-S. I know that's kind of a weird name, but there's biblical meaning behind all that. So VOUS, VOUS Church, it's kind of a young, hip church and stuff. She brought the house down. I mean, it was, I got out of there and she and Charlie had to go sit somewhere else because of the way all the seating was crazy. There was over 4,000 people there, if I hadn't mentioned that. And so it was nuts. But anyway, we met up and I was like headbutting the wall because I was like so amped up of what she had said to us. It was crazy. She was incredible. And before we get into kind of what all she talked about, I want to give you kind of a tad bit of a backstory. She battled with infertility for 8 years. They've been married for 8 years, and I guess a little over 8 years now. And she couldn't have any babies. They had tried and this whole time. And as you heard on the screen, she said, I tried to walk that battle by myself. But she said that battle was way lonelier than I ever could imagine. And then she said, finally, once I put it all on God and gave my strength to God, they now are, they already have one baby, and she was 5 months pregnant preaching up on the stage. So it was incredible. And so her story was really, really cool. So I'm going to let you go ahead and go, and then because I know that you really liked her, and then I'll fill in the spaces if I need to.
It was really cool because we've talked about before how we really wanted our kids to see a female speaker. And we've talked about how if all of our young ladies just see men up on the stage speaking, they think they don't have anything to say, that they can't be up here talking. And so it was so important for us to have a female speak to them, and for not only our young ladies, but our young men to see too that, anyone can be up here. So I really liked, her whole thing was that, I think it's It's a scripture in Exodus, and it appears in Psalms, and then again in Isaiah. And it says, "You are my strength, my song, and you have become my salvation." And that first appears after the Israelites crossed the Red Sea. And then it just becomes a song that they say over and over and over again in the Bible. And I think that's so cool that it started there and we're still saying it and still means things to us now.
Yeah, so she talked about, and she never gave the message a title, but I entitled it Your Song, because that's kind of what she talked about the whole time, was like, what's your song? What is that's inside of you that, you know, the Israelites were crying out and singing this whole entire time? And so what's your song? And y'all, that's why we do praise and worship. That's why we sing. That's because it's a celebration. And so I loved this line, and I don't want anybody to think that I am bashing our congregation or anything, but it was just really cool because you know, a lot of times we kind of take praise and worship for granted. I think maybe some people, but she was really harping on how important worship is and having your own song. And she said this line right here, and I was like about to run laps around the church. She said, "Praise and worship is not a warm-up, it's warfare." Worship is not a warm-up. It's not just, you know, warm up for Pastor Rick to come up here and speak. Worship is warfare. That's how we battle against the devil. And for those of you that don't know, worship isn't just a song. It's not just singing. Your song is so much more than just a song, like an actual like melody and lyrics. And worship is what is inside of you. What's in your heart. So I thought that was very, very cool and a really cool line to hold on to. So that was neat. So you got anything else? Are we ready to keep going?
I got more to say.
Okay, now you go for it, girl.
She talked about how when Moses was in Egypt, he saw the injustice committed against the Israelites, and he wanted to do something about it. And instead, he ended up killing a man, and that's what made him flee away from that. And God calls him back and says, "Now we're going to solve injustice, but we're going to do it my way." And he didn't just save one man, he saved the whole people. And I think that's important to know, that when we do it our way, we do it wrong. But God has much better things and much greater things in store for us if we just trust his way.
Absolutely. And what I thought was cool, and I don't know if they scheduled it this way or if it just happened to fall this way, or you know, it based on, you know, people's schedules. I don't know how it happened, but if you go back through that day, what we just told you, that was all. Those three speakers were all in one day. So you had a rapper preach the first session. The second session was a 65-year-old man, and then the last session was a woman. And I just thought that was super cool that it was so, they got so much variety and so, you know, it was so different. But it was a black guy, a 65-year-old white male, and then a female that all talked on the same day. And so I just thought that was really cool that, you know, let's look at that diversity, that, you know, anybody can bring the word. It doesn't matter who we are. As long as, you know, God is inside of us, we can all bring it. So I thought that was really neat. All right, so we go on to the next morning. Anybody know who Hillsong is? You listen to Hillsong on the radio. Hillsong is very popular with their worship. Everybody knows Hillsong through their worship. But they are a church based out of Australia, and they have a very awesome youth group, and they don't even call it a youth group, they call it a movement. And their movement is called Young and Free. And the guy that leads this is named Peter Toggs. And he always brings it. It was incredible. And so what he was talking about was taking the next step. And he said, it's time to take the next step. And what he meant by this was, we all, and especially the younger generation, but everybody can do this, is we want to know what God's going to do in our lives in 5 years and 10 years and what's going to happen down the road. And the problem is we get this dream and we think about that and we're like, okay, how can I get to that dream right now? And so, and what he was saying, and he used, I think like everybody used Moses. And it wasn't planned. I mean, that was obviously a God thing, but everybody was talking about Moses. And he talked about Moses in the sense that he said, if we could go in a time machine and go back and we could tell Moses everything that was going to happen, if we could tell him that God was going to talk to him through a burning bush, if we could tell him that he was going to stick a stick in a big sea and it was going to raise up, and then it was going to crash on all the people that were following him, and then he was going to spend 40 years in the desert with millions of people, and all this stuff, do you think Moses would have done it? Probably not. He would have been freaking out. He would have lost his ever-loving mind. And so God doesn't need you to know what's going to happen 5, 10 years down the road. He doesn't need you to know that stuff. He needs you to take the next step. He needs you to go, okay, I want you to take just one step at a time, all right? So just take this step. We're just going to take baby steps, y'all. And just take another step. And eventually you'll get to where he needs you to be, but you just need to take it one step at a time. And so that was just kind of his whole premise of the message was, hey, maybe your step right now is just getting in the Word. Maybe your step is asking Jesus to come into your life right now. Maybe you don't have that. Maybe your step is just getting in the Word. Maybe your step is to go out and help in the community. Maybe whatever your step is, it's time to take your step right now and just take a little step at a time. Just take it in baby steps. And eventually, if God gives you a vision, then you'll get to that vision when he's ready for you to be in that vision. So that's kind of what he was talking about. And so I thought that was really cool.
I got something.
He
also talked about how God told Joshua everywhere, when they go into the promised land, he says, everywhere you step, I will give you territory. He didn't say, I'm going to give you the territory and then you get to go be there. He didn't say, I'll give it to you first. He says, you have to step into it when I give it to you. I think that can be scary sometimes. You want to just happen and then you get to go be there, but you have to take the first step.
Absolutely. All right. Once again, I don't have a picture of this guy up there, but they're, like Eli said, they split one session into men and women. And so whenever we were in there, there was a guy named Todd McIntyre. He's their men's pastor there at Gateway. He's incredible. And so he was, he said that he has a marriage counselor that helps him just every now and again he goes to. And so it's just kind of like scheduled that he goes to this marriage counselor every now and again. And he said that one time when he went, the guy said, all right, I want you to, I don't know how many ever times it was, but he said every now and again, I want you to sit with your wife and I want her to tell you everything that you are doing that is not godly like. And you can't say anything, you can't make any noises, you can't defend yourself, you can't do jack squat. You have to listen for 30 minutes. And he was like, And so, but he did it. And so he said one morning, they were laying in bed on a Saturday morning, and she said, hey, I got something that you aren't doing that's not godly like. And he was like, oh, geez, here we go. And he said, she said, I've just really kind of realized that you're acting like a boy. And he said, I'm 49 years old. I'm a man. I got kids. I'm a man. And she said, well, you're acting like a boy. And he couldn't defend himself. And he said, well, could you elaborate a little bit? And she said, you seem to be pouting a lot. You pout quite a bit. And he's like, he just kept wanting her to elaborate. And she's like, that's all I got. And so he said that he prayed. And he was like, God, just reveal to me what she's talking about. I don't understand it. And he said, as he crossed the threshold of their bedroom door to go out into the living room, that God revealed to him that he needed to read 1 Corinthians 13. And I don't have it exactly, but most of you know this is kind of like, it's like the love verses. You hear it at weddings and stuff, and it describes what love is. And it says, love is patient, love is kind, it's not boastful, and it has all these qualities of what love is. And so when he heard from God that he was supposed to read 1 Corinthians 13, he was like, God, I already know that verse. I've heard those verses. I know that. And God said, just go read it. And so he read it, and he was like, whoa, you know. And he said the Spirit just hit him and was like, this is what you're not doing. This is why she said that to you. And so what he did was he took out love, and he put men in there. And he said, men are not boastful, they're not proud, men are kind, and he went through the whole thing. And then he said, now what we're going to do is we're going to put boy in there, and we're going to read it all negatively. And he said, so boys are not kind, boys are jealous, boys are proud, boys are boastful. And so it was just really cool and to hear that. And I think as men, sometimes we need to hear that. Sometimes we do act like boys, right? And we don't always act like men. We don't always have those qualities. So for the men, I encourage you to take that on. So do you have anything that you would like to say?
In the girls session, we talked about discovering your true image, which I think is really important, especially now when all of our young ladies are being bombarded with images on social media and the news and all sorts of places that, maybe aren't real women. They're photoshopped, they have a makeup team, they have a hair team, they have great clothes, and our young ladies grow up thinking, oh, I have to look like that all the time, when those people don't look like that. They had all that help. So I think it's important that our young ladies know what their true image is. And she said, first you have to discover who you are, and that's in God. You know who you are when you know who God is. And then she said, find your purpose. And all of our purposes are wrapped up in how we can reach Jesus, or how we can show other people Jesus. No matter what you're doing, your goal is to show other people the love of Jesus. And then she said, walk in your purpose. So if there's anything you're doing that doesn't align with that, you need to get rid of it. And then the last step is to help others walk in their purpose.
Awesome. So the last guy was their overall youth pastor there at Gateway. His name is Ben Pirtle, or if you're Australian, you apparently pronounce it Pertel. That's how the guy from Australia was pronouncing it. But so he had a message that was entitled Full of It. And the question was, what are you full of? And so the three things that he said that full people look like were, number one was full people look like Jesus. The second thing is full people lend like Jesus. And the third thing is full people leak like Jesus. I know that sounds kind of weird. And what he meant by that was Jesus left residue everywhere he went. Everywhere he was teaching, everything that he did, he left residue. And so you need to leak like Jesus. You need to leave that residue wherever you are through your actions. You need to leave Jesus everywhere you go. You need people to go, man, I got Jesus on me from that guy or girl. So that's kind of what he was talking about was, hey, what are you full of? What is inside of you? Because whatever's inside of you is going to pour out of you. So you got something real quick?
Nope.
Awesome. Will y'all give her a hand? It's very courageous. Thank you so much, sweetheart. I love you so much. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all that you do for us. I just want to say thank you for all these young people that went to camp, for all the young people, period. But I ask that you would just bless them, that you would just put your hand on them, and like I said, not just the kids that went to camp, but all of our young people, and not just the ones in our church, but all of the young people, that they need you in their lives, God. They need all the help they can get right now because it is hard to live as a teenager. And so I ask that you would just be with them, Father. I ask that if anybody's going through anything, maybe they are going through a tough time, that you would just touch them, that you would love on them. Father, if there was a word spoken into somebody today, I ask that you would just help them to receive it, and that you would just take that seed and that you would plant it inside of them, that you would just water it and make it grow, and you just get them ready to rock whenever it's time to rock. And Father, I ask that you would just help them to realize that they need to take baby steps, as we were talking about, that they don't need to know what's 5, 10 years down the road, how many ever years down the road. They just need to know what's right in front of them. And I ask that you would just reveal that to them. And that you would just say, look, you don't need to be anxious about the future, because I've got you in my hands. I got you in the palm of my hands. And I'm going to give you that peace that passes all understanding. So, Father, we thank you. We love you. We pray all this in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen.